Hey, got cake? Welcome back to How to Cake It. It's still winter, so I am making a toque cake. If you don't know what that is, it is a knitted cap or hat, but us Canadians call it a toque. To form my toque cake, I'm baking some pink vanilla cake and some chocolate cake. It's winter. You need something good. Forget the calorie rollback. It's cold. Once my cakes are baked, I remove them from their pans, level them, remove the caramelization from the bottom of the pink cakes, and then I cut all of my cakes into 2 layers. Because I'm unsure of how much cake I'm going to use to build this toque, I'm saving my humps as well. I'm just leveling the humps and cutting the middle out with a circle cutter. Now it's time to simple syrup all of these cakes. And speaking of new year, new me, Sir Squeeze has decided that he loves Joanne the Scammer. I mean, what is this? Sir Squeeze and his girlfriend, Fennell, are on sale at howtocakeit.com. The fur is not included. It's time to fill and stack these cakes with my Italian Meringue Buttercream, and I'm going to alternate the layers. So chocolate, pink vanilla, chocolate, pink vanilla, you get it. By the time my hat was about 8 inches high, I decided it was actually tall enough. So I didn't use one of my pink layers or my humps.
So where did they go?
Don't worry, they were fine. They just didn't make it into the toque. Now that my buttercream is firm, it is time to carve this into a toque shape. I marked the top of my cake with an X just to mark the center, and then I used my serrated knife to carve downward from that X down to that 2-inch line above the bottom. I've made a mark all around the cake about 2 inches up from the bottom because I want my toque to have a band that's folded over, so I want that to stay fairly straight. Now this is a great cake for beginners, I think. You don't really have to worry too much about the carving. It is a knitted hat, so it's really forgiving. Essentially, you want it to be more narrow up at the top and then sort of curve and dome down to the bottom, the way it would fit on your head. The next thing I do is crumb coat and chill. This is so much better than dancing to the crumb coat. Now I'm singing the crumb coat. I've moved up. So I was a backup dancer and now I'm the lead singer.
One more time.
Crumb coat and chill.
Okay, cool.
This is me like pointing to the fridge. After the crumb coat, I ice my cake one more time and chill. If you're up for hibernating in this cold weather, please share this video. And if you're lucky enough to live in a part of the world that is currently warm, share it on my behalf, please. Once my buttercream is nice and chilled, I want to measure the circumference of this cake. So I leave my fabric measuring tape around and then I measure out 20 sections. I then want to take those marks and mark them all the way up to the top of the cake. So I use my fabric measuring tape just as a guide and lay it from the mark at the bottom to the top center and run my knife along the buttercream so that I can see those division lines clearly. It's time to create the first of our knitted textures on this toque cake. And for this I'm using the clay extruder, and boy am I using it. I feed the coral fondant into my clay extruder and I use the faceplate that is made for making grass. Now my clay extruder has a couple of these. I'm using the sort of the thickest one. So it has 7 holes in one faceplate to make cords of fondant. It takes a long time and it's very tedious, but you don't want to extrude all the cords you need for this hat cake because they do dry out. So I'm going to work on this hat one section at a time. I then take all my cords and line them up in pairs. So 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. And then what I do is twist the cords onto each other. Now it's time to line up these sort of knitted cords on my tube cake. So I'm going to work on one section, and the first thing I'm going to do is apply one of the twists to the center of a section. Then I need to keep adding these twisted cords to my cake right up against each other until one whole section is covered. Because each section is wider at the base of the hat and comes to a point at the top of the hat, as you lay on your twisted cords, you might need to overlap them slightly at the top of the hat. But the most important thing is to press them firmly to the cake and then up against each other, because we don't want to see through the cords. I'm going to fill every other section on the cake with this twisted cord method. This tube cake is going to be made up of a few different patterns. In between, there'll be some more textured knitting techniques that I am using a mold for. This week only at howtocake.com, we are having a bundle up sale, which includes this Got Cake hoodie and all of our other hoodies and sweatshirts. Now it's time to move on to my braided knit mold. For this mold, I simply dust the surface with just a little bit of cornstarch and then brush it away because I don't want my fondant to stick to the inside. Then I roll out some thick cords of my coral fondant, press it into the mold, and I use a small fondant rolling pin to roll my fondant into the mold. As I roll, the excess sort of gets pushed out of the mold and I can cut it away and peel it away. Then I carefully turn out the braid to reveal this gorgeous knitted texture. Now I need to add these braids in between the already decorated sections of my cake. Remember that I mentioned there's going to be a 2-inch band sort of folded up on my cake. So I use my ruler to make sure I'm leaving a 2-inch clearance, and then I just use it to sort of press up the braid and tuck it in. At the top, I'm going to pinch it together. I just simply lay it on top and try to place it. And then I realize I want to trim sort of the sides of the braid. So I use the sharp tip of my paring knife to just sort of trim away the sides, just some of that excess fondant. Because as my hat comes to a point, obviously it would be as if it was knitted, into a more narrow hat. Now I need to address the space underneath the braids, because under there's just buttercream. And because of this, I'm not ready to attach the band at the bottom because I want that band to be smooth. I don't want it to dip in and out. So I roll out some of my coral fondant to the same thickness as the cords that are laying on my cake. And then I just cut bands that fit in between and are the correct height of 2 inches and lay them inside to fill in the gaps. It's time to move on to my second knitted mold, which is like a ribbed border. I use this mold in the same way that I used my braided knit mold. I make a few of these and then I attach them to my cake. But first, I want to make it look as if this band has sort of folded up under the hat. So before I place it on the cake, I use my fingertip and sort of just round down one of the long ends of this ribbed border. Then I brush on some clear piping gel to the back of the border and attach it at the bottom of the cake. I need to add several pieces side by side to get all the way around the cake. So make sure you're always using your piece right side up, just so that the pattern matches up. As I add all the pieces of this ribbed border, where the seams meet, I just use a fine sculpting tool to sort of press the edges together very gently, just in case you can see any sort of lines that make a definite seam. Now, I'm gonna make this toque extra fancy, and I wanna add sort of like a decorative knit to the top of the ribbed border. Yes. This is a fancy toque. For this, I'm using my braided mold once again, but this time I'm only gonna fill half of it. I make a few of these pieces and then I use a sharp knife to trim it nice and clean. So I'm only seeing sort of the curves of half of a braid. Then I brush the back of this braid with clear piping gel and add it to the top of the ribbed border all the way around the cake. And again, if you filled the mold too much and you feel like the edges are sort of too thick, then you can use your knife to trim that away sort of on a diagonal. Trim away some of that excess fondant so it looks more like it's been knitted into the cake. Now, Jocelyn, this is gonna be your favorite part of this hat. Do you know what it is?
The Pom Pom.
The Pom Pom. I make my sculpted Rice Krispies. I make a really small batch in a small bowl, which was nice. It was easier to handle. And then I take it out of the bowl and just finish, kneading it all together and compressing it into a nice ball. The next thing I do is make a little pilot hole at the bottom of my Rice Krispie ball because I will use a dowel to help me keep this Pom Pom in place. Now I need to brush this entire Rice Krispie ball with some clear piping gel and then roll out my gray fondant on a nonstick board with a small fondant rolling pin and cover the ball. And I made it gray, and I just want to say it has nothing to do with the beautiful pair of designer shoes that you found in LA and we left behind.
Which ones were? Oh.
Did I just remind you of them? She did an Instagram post dedicated to the shoes she was leaving behind, and she wished the lucky woman well who will buy them.
Please never bring that up again.
I'm sorry. That was hurtful of me. I'm really sorry. There are a few faceplates that come with my clay extruder that make grass. So I use the thickest one to make the knitted texture on my hat, and now I'm going to use the thinnest one for the pom pom. So I extrude a little bit of gray fondant, and then I just use my sharp knife to chop it into little lengths, and then I bunch all these little sort of threads together and glue them onto my pom pom. I just want to see how it looks and if I've picked the right size. I did. Yes! So I'm very happy, and now I'm going to attach this Rice Krispie ball to the top of my cake. The first thing I do is decide to trim away some of the excess fondant at the top of my toque. I want to make sure it's a nice flat surface. Then I insert the lollipop stick down into the center of my cake, leaving some exposed. And now I'm going to spread a little bit of royal icing on the bottom of my Rice Krispie ball and then attach it where I already made the pilot hole. Now I brush around the bottom of my Rice Krispie ball with some clear piping gel, and then I extrude. Every day I'm extruding, every day I'm extruding, every day I'm extruding. It was really like that. That was my life. I was just extruding and extruding and extruding and gluing it onto the pom pom all around where the piping gel is. Keep doing that until you get up to the top. I make a pom pom on my party hat cake in my cake book, and I make it in a completely different way. I don't use a clay extruder, I don't use a Rice Krispie ball, and it's so cute. Make sure to check out my cake book at howtocakeit.com. I feel the need to expose a secret about myself.
Uh-oh.
I don't wear toques.
No, you don't, actually. You don't wear any hats.
Have you seen this hair? I'm a hood girl. I wear a hood. You know, I'm so hood. Got cake. That's what this actually means.
I was so confused.
You misread. You misunderstood. Please subscribe to this channel. We do a new cake video every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Click here to watch my breakfast cakes compilation video, and click here to watch my spaghetti and meatballs step by step over on our new channel, How to Cake It Step by Step. Got cake? Why, yes, I have got cake. See you on Tuesday.